So we're going to be installing some Prothane Billet engine mounts on the Mustang. This is just a recommended upgrade once you start doing or having more power. I'm going to be installing boost, as you've seen. I have my supercharger right over there. Basically all that you need to do is you need to remove any type of engine covers you have. I'll be disconnecting the battery. I'll need to disconnect my intake just to gain some access. We're going to have to lift the motor just a tad. You can kind of see down there, that's the engine mount right there, right below the header, that bolt. You gotta bolt that, and then there's two bolts, one on that side, and then one on the other side. It's kind of hard to see down there. But that bolt there and the other one, you just need to loosen those a bit, lift the engine, and then you can just swap those Prothane engine mounts in. So what these provide is just a less flex on the motor mounts. You'll feel a bit more of the engine in the car. It just makes it a bit more healthy and less flex with all that power that's going to be going into it. So I'm going to be installing these. I'm going to show you a little bit about that. So I took the shaker hood off and the intake arm, and then I found the right sockets for it. So the center bolt on the engine mounts is going to be a 15mm, and the two side bolts is a 13mm. So right down there, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that center bolt there is the 15, and the bolt to the left of that, and there's going to be a bolt on the right, is the 13. So you're just going to have to loosen those. I wouldn't take them completely off. And then at that point, after that, we're going to lift the engine a bit. So as you can see here, the passenger side engine mount's a lot easier to see, so you can kind of see right there. There's a bolt on the left, bolt on the right, that holds it to the subframe there, and then the engine mount on top with that single bolt. So you just break those loose, and then we'll start lifting the engine. So you can see there, I removed the center bolt completely, and then I loosened the other two on the sides. Now I'm going to get my jack out and lift up the engine. What I'm going to do is place the jack under the crank, between the oil pan and the crank. I lifted there when I did my headers. I had to remove the engine mounts anyways when I did that. It's a solid place to put it. It's not on the oil pan, it's just on the crease. So it's not going to hurt the engine in any way. So we're going to lift it from there. So as you can see, we've lifted the engine. I removed the two bolts on either side. The engine mount is cleared, so that is ready to move. Just to show you where I jacked from, you can see right there, there's the crank pulley, and then there's the oil pan. It's just a lip. I just lifted it right between there. I've done this before, and it is probably the best spot to lift it. There's not much space for you to lift on an oil pan back here, because the cradle may be behind this, but this is the best place to do it. Just put a chock of wood there and lift it up off the engine mounts. So now I'm just going to grab the other side and remove those engine mounts. So these are what the engine mounts look like compared to each other. There should be a rubber boot over this one, but it just fell under the car. So it's rubber and stamped steel, and this is billet aluminum and Prothane plastic. So these will be a lot stiffer. You just reuse the stock bolts and then this new bolt up top. So it's not a stud anymore, it's just a bolt that goes down into it. So we're going to be finishing up the other side, and we will update you once we have more progress. And I also will be reapplying some blue thread locker to these threads. So I got the other side just about finished up. The side bolts and the motor mount bolt, they both say to get torque to 30 foot-pounds, which doesn't seem like a lot. My DeWalt Impact does about like 35, so I just went on that until it's tight, and so far it seems pretty good. So I'm going to finish up on the other side and then get the bolt on this side, and or lower the engine and then get the bolt in, and this should be completed. Alright, so I just finished up with this, the swap. Basically, as you can see down there, everything is all put together. My only piece of advice I would say is when installing these, the two bolts that mount to the K-member, don't tighten them all the way down, or else sometimes if you're on an uneven surface, the engine will lower and the center bolt won't line up. So what I did is I left the 2 bolts on the sides loose so I could lift it up and angle it so I can get the center screw in. With everything loose, I lowered the engine down and then tightened everything down so everything lined up perfectly. So that's how you do that. Trying to think of any other piece of advice. That's probably about it. It's a pretty simple job. I didn't have to lift the car at all. You can do everything just from a standing position. You do have to lift the engine, and I don't have an engine lift, so I just lifted it on the oil pan and crank the crank pulley. So it's pretty easy. I'm going to get everything put back together, fire it up, and give it a test drive. Engine definitely feels a lot more lumpy and rough, or I guess like more raw. You can feel it. The shifts are definitely sharper. You can just like feel the engine. I put it in first gear and was sitting at a light, and you can just feel it. It's great. So far, these engine mounts are really nice. So in gear, you could definitely feel the rumble. You might even be able to pick it up. It's rattling this cheap Mustang's interior. And in park though, since disengaged, you can still feel it quite a bit, but it is a lot tamer. Doesn't feel any different between gears, but so that's how you install billet Prothane engine mounts on a 05 to, I think, 010 Mustang. 010 will have the same mount. So thanks for watching, and see you later.